You watched that whole Tiger King.
Loved it.
What was your thoughts on that whole thing?
I didn't love it. I hated every single person except for like 3 people on that.
You hated everybody?
I hated everybody. I'm sitting there.
Who were the 3 people?
I loved his campaign manager.
Okay, the campaign manager. He was a nice guy.
The dude who was just like, he worked for Joe, and he not the dude with the metal legs, but he had the glasses, and he's just like
the mullet.
The mullet guy. I
that
liked
dude
him.
never did he ever take off his glasses in that whole doc?
No, and then the one that got their arm bitten off too. I like those 3 people because the entire time, the campaign manager wanted the best for Joe, and he's like, "Well, this is my dream job. I'm going to try my best," but shit was weird. And then the other 2 were legitimately there for the animals. Everybody else has some sort of like foot in the game.
Everyone has something they want to gain.
Oh
man.
Well, Joe didn't pay me this week, so I'm gonna kind of pay him this.
Wild.
Honest to God, I think the best guy I liked on that was episode 2. Was the guy from the guy down in Florida who was like the inspiration for Scarface, who saw a dude just hacked up with a circular saw and was like,
how is it that a guy who was a drug dealer, like a huge narco, like is like the 5th most interesting thing in that whole doc?
You can call it director spin or whatever you want to do, but
he hated Carol Baskin too.
Everybody, I can't find one person who I've talked to who's seen the whole thing who's been like, Carol Baskin gets a bad rap.
Yeah, like that's the one constant on the whole doc.
Like, well.
The one constant on the whole doc is like, okay, Carol Baskin killed Don, and she's a murderer, and she's crazy, and she's a loon. Like, everyone has their different opinions on, like, Joe, whether he was framed, whether he was set up, like, whether he did it, whether he was a murderer, like, and that other guy, Jeff Lowe. But the one constant is everyone hates Carol.
I hated Doc Bhagavan.
No, he was cool. I like Bhagavan.
That was a cult.
No. Okay, we're in agreement that it was a. We're in agreement that this man obviously was doing some stuff. He was running a cult. Okay, we can agree on that.
Absolutely. Maybe it's a don't hate the player, hate the game thing. You've got so many beautiful women. I will give you life, and he's paying him $100 a week to just do everything on this.
He had to have had like some magical potion, or he had to be like a sex god.
No, I'll tell you what he had. That in his pants. That.
You think
you see the
that's
elephant?
Enough?
Hey, baby, you see that elephant I walked in on? The exact same size, baby. They don't call me Doc for nothing. You don't get that nickname for nothing, man. All I'm saying.
Okay, but my thing is like, okay.
Clip that.
Yeah, that's going in editing too. But like, okay, so back on track though.
Anyways.
Okay, was Joe a hero? Was he a martyr? Was he wrongfully done in by Carol? Was he doing legal? What was he doing? Something that was good for animals? Like, what is your initial impression when Joe Exotic comes to your mind? What do you first think about, like how he ended? The story ended.
He is the hero the Netflix streaming world needed as coronavirus hit. Mm-hmm. Because think about it, that docuseries, as crazy as that was. If the regular world was going on, you had the NBA playoffs coming up, the NHL season was ending, you had, it's election season.
We didn't know what we were going to do.
But then everything kind of hit a halt. Okay, well, people are staying home from work. There's really not a lot to do other than reruns. And then, who's this Joe Exotic character, this and that? And then it's just so astronomically like, holy shit. Like, it's so astronomically.
Dude, that dude blew up in a matter of a week.
Oh my God!
Maybe 72 hours.
It got so big, people are asking the president to pardon him. Do you know how important? How this happened so long ago, and now it finally came out on Netflix.
That was a while.
Hey, are you gonna pardon?
Who is he?
I'll look into it.
Was Trump like the only person on the earth who never heard of that guy before?
I'll tell you, that was the first and maybe only time I've actually kind of laughed at something Trump has said and been like, that was kind of funny. He's addressing Joe Exotic.
I think the one thing about that whole situation that really just blew my mind, and I went back and forth because this was like the most confusing part of the whole documentary. So you remember when, and I watched the documentary back 2 full times. Mm-hmm. It's really sad that I haven't watched the Jordan doc like twice, but I've watched Tiger King twice. Like I literally like from the minute I watched that, I would like, you're hooked. Mm-hmm. You're hooked in the storyline. I told my mom because so I got a lot to say. So my mom watches the first 10 minutes. I feel like with this documentary, there's 2 types of people. You either watch the first 10 minutes and you think, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Why the hell am I here?
But if you have an open mind, you really are like the concept of like, I'm hooked. I need to watch more. I need to binge. I finished that doc in like 12 hours.
We watched it over the course of 3 days because we'd watch a couple episodes.
You would pace yourself.
I'm like, this was a lot. There was so much crazy just junk happening. A dude rolled up in like a 3-wheel car with a skeleton in the front, and we didn't even think about it until
that dude on the jet ski, bro.
Okay, he like replays that shit at home. He's just like, it's the tiger. Just
wouldn't you if you were on that kind of level?
If I had that hairline, I would hide all.
I wouldn't care. You know, there's people that were hitting that guy up just to like be around him because of that damn doc.
I think the two things that stood out to me at the end of this whole thing, because there's a lot that stood out, but the two that a tiger's only $2,000.
The baby tiger's $2,000.
And to kill somebody is only $10,000.
Wait a minute. I thought the
baby tiger was $2,000.
The baby tiger's $2,000. It's like, what would the normal tiger go for?
I don't know. If somebody came up to me and was like, "Yo, I got a full-grown Bengal ass tiger in my truck, $500." 75% of my brain says, "Don't buy it. You don't need a tiger." But I guarantee you, 25% of my brain would be like, "I could own a fucking
Where would
tiger."
you put it though?
Doesn't matter. I would just run around the town with it. Look what I got! Yo, take a picture.
You would just hope that somebody like just.
We would go into the Costco, and I would just let it run in the meat section. Hey, there you go. There's dinner.
There's no rules about bringing the tiger to the Costco.
I'd wear a mask, glasses. They wouldn't know who I was. I would wear like all the opposite sports teams from what I root for. I'd buy a Dodger jersey. I'd buy like a Rams hat. Oh, well, he's obviously a Dodger and a Rams fan. Go Betty, and then like just run away.
Was Joe Exotic a victim, or did he get what he deserved?
He is a victim of his own circumstances.
I like the way you phrase that.
Thank you. He lived fast. He, as he put it, had some kinky sex. I've done drugs. I fire guns. I'm a homosexual. That's not actually a bad.
He had to have been on drugs at least 95% of the stuff they filmed.
His husband's funeral.
Man, that was on my mind. That was on my damn mind. Okay, that funeral, like, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about the wedding. The wedding, like, who picks the pink shirts?
I have weddings are up to there are many different weddings. There's many different ways to profess your love for somebody, to signal your joint unification of marriage, which is a beautiful thing. But everyone kind of knows how funerals go. You don't talk about dragging your nuts on your lover's face.
You don't do the most. You sit there. You let the processions go. You remember the person for how they were.
I understand, like
the balls in the face thing. I didn't really get.
That's okay. Cool. That's like the least thing. I'm just kind of like, all right. I understand. We all grieve in different ways. When my grandmother passed away almost 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago now, actually. When she passed away, I listened to the Beatles on the way home. I don't know why it was like something that I was just like.
Just what you wanted to do.
I want to listen to the Beatles. There's a couple really heartfelt songs. I shed a tear in private.
That's how
that's how I grieve.
And you're good.
And I understand that we all grieve in different ways, but he's sitting there singing his country album has nothing to do with the guy that just died.
Well,
or
if
the
you
fact
remember,
that he gave him the gun.
Okay, but if you remember, like, in all fairness to him, I might be wrong, but the song he sings, isn't that like in
About
remembrance of him?
Yeah.
So at least there's some context to like why he's singing that song.
It's how do I want to put this lightly? Yes, we all grieve differently, but it's always life is a cabaret for Joe Exotic. It's always if there's a camera rolling, he's performing. He turns it on, right? And you see that in the documentary. The guy who was filming his reality show, he was like, "No, I need you to make me look like this," and he has a brain for performance. And that's.
Do you think he purposely like burned up that whole spot?
Absolutely.
You do.
I believe everything in that documentary. I believe Carol Baskin killed her husband. I believe Joe burned down that thing and killed his alligators in there. I think Doc Antle runs a cult, and I think I'm gonna move to Oklahoma and buy a tiger. No, I think he burned that building down.
Oh man. Well, that documentary will live in. I don't know if it's going to live in lore infamy, but it